back now with the third and final part of Introduction to Methware. We are going to start with the Actions menu that you'll find below the picture of the patient, and we'll be able to wrap it up pretty quickly after that. The Actions menu under the photo of the patient is a set of things that perform some function in the program. As I mentioned before, Methware works on a permission system so that your list of actions that you'll see won't be the same as here. Each user will just have access to the actions they'll need to be able to use in the clinic. For nurses and the pharmacist, they'll have access to the Medicaid print labels. This is labels for the medication bottles. Medication correction, again, that's something that has to do with medication, obviously. But for counselors and all other users, you'll have access to the financial transactions, this discharge and admit button. Print UA label is what you'll use to print the label for a drug screen. And this administer TB is going to be for the nurse to use. Holds is an important action, and I'll do a whole separate video on how to work with holds. Attachments is where you will find all the electronic forms that we use in the office. Med count we went over before. It's where we keep track of outside prescriptions. The insurance details is probably not going to appear because we don't do insurance billing. And then edit is an important function that you'll need to be able to use. If you double click on that, it's going to turn these columns in the patient information window green. That means that you're in the edit mode so that you can add or delete information in any field that is not a read-only field. Some of these fields are going to be read-only, meaning you can see them but you can't change them. This is going to be the patient number, the patient dose, and the drug type, things that we don't want to be accidentally changed. Just take a brief look at the tabs that are across the top of the patient information window. You'll see up here that we've got reports. If you click on that, your list that you see will be different from this list, but essentially it's the same thing. It's just a list of reports that we can produce. And reports are also a way that we use to perform certain functions within the program. Let's take a look at one of them. This one is called the due in. So if we were to print this, the program's going to open a window to show the date that we want to report on. So due in is going to be a list of the patients that are due in on whatever date we select here. You can always just change that date. Say if you want to find out who's due to come in tomorrow, you can change the date, hit enter, and it's going to print out a report. Of course, it's a short report because we've only got this one active patient right now. Okay, so once you're finished with that, you can exit out of it. Note that when you go to reports, the first item is going to be print to. So Methware functions a little bit differently than most, say, Windows programs function. I mean, generally you'll look at a screen for, say, Windows, and then you'll go to a button to tell it that you want to print something, and you can say where you want to print it to. In Methware, first you tell the program where you want to print the information to. You can either print it to your screen, or you can print it to a file to save, or you can select a printer that has been set up in the system. The default setting is print to screen, and in most cases you'll mostly be just using the information off of your screen. Sometimes you will want to print it out and get a paper copy, and in that case you just select the printer that you want to send it to. So let's say though that we're going to go ahead and select screen. It bumps you out of that tab. You just go back to the tab and scroll down to the report that you want to run. Let's say patient medication history. It's going to ask you what patient you want, and it'll default to the patient that you have open on your screen. And you can just say OK, and it will ask you the start date and the end date that you want for that report. A lot of times in the program, if you cancel a function, you might get some kind of error like this, and in most cases it doesn't affect anything. You can just either abort what you're doing or just ignore the error. So that takes care of the Reports tab. Tasks is not something that you'll be using. Drugs is a tab that is just used by the pharmacist and the nurse. And these two, Utilities and Configuration, are the only other two tabs that most users will be using. If you look in utilities, the things that you would use on this list are going to include adding a new patient, and you can also open up this awaiting medication window. The one other item that you may use day to day is this messages feature. This is just an intra-office messaging system that we have. It's pretty self-explanatory. This window is going to show you the messages that have been sent to you. If you want to send a message, it has a list of all the users that are in the office, and you can just select who you want to send a message to, put a subject in this window, type your message, and send. And since I sent a message to myself, you can see that it appeared on this list, that it's pending. I haven't read it yet. If you receive a message, it will appear in this window, and then you can reply to it, forward it, reply all. You can look at the top and see that you'll get an alert here. If you receive any new messages, it's going to tell you, it's going to flash. So you'll be able to see it, that you have an unread message that is pending. Okay, so under utilities, let's just go back and review. You will be using this add patient feature when there's a new patient that comes into treatment that you're going to be setting up with an account. You may use this awaiting medication window, so you'll know who's actually checked into the clinic. And then the last feature is messages. Configuration is the last tab here that you'll be using. The things in configuration that you'll probably need to be concerned with are pretty much just the permissions. That's where you're going to go to change your password. There are a few things I'd like to add in that I don't think got included into the 3 introduction videos that I did, so I'm just adding these on at the end here. I don't think I finished explaining about using the edit function when you want to change information in the patient information page. As you know, you double click on this and it turns the screen green, meaning that it's in edit mode, and then you can add in or delete things in the field that are not read-only fields. When you're finished, if you just double click on edit, then it gets you out of the edit mode and the information in all fields is protected, so you can't type over it, so it won't be deleted or changed in any way. Another feature is this check-in button under the actions menu. This is what you would use if you don't have a welcome station in your clinic where patients check in to get medicated, or if maybe the welcome station is broken. So they would just come to you in person and you would just double click on here to check them in. Once they get checked in, you can see that on the awaiting medication window, they've been added to the list. So this will be just a growing list as people check into the clinic, and then they get deleted from the list as soon as they're medicated. So the nurse keeps this list open all the time. That way she can see sort of who's in line to get medicated. And then if you just click on the patient number, it opens the screen for that patient. So once the patient is checked in, you won't need to check them out again because the nurse will do that. As soon as she medicates them, then they're considered checked out, and it toggles back to say check in. Okay, so say you have a person who's already been admitted to the program. This button is going to show discharge because they can't be admitted since they're already in the program. The only option is to discharge them. If you were to use that, it's going to ask you if you want to make a note about the type of discharge, and I'll go over that in a different video about how you handle it, but you would just put in whatever the reason is for discharge and say OK. Then that's going to toggle this button back to admit. Okay, so for right now though, I'm going to go ahead and admit the patient. When you do that, again, it asks you if you want to make a note about the admission, and it will admit the patient. So this would be used when, say, a patient is already admitted and maybe they've left treatment or they've just been absent and you need to remove them from the active list of patients. If you have a new patient that's come into the clinic that's new to treatment in our clinic, if you wanted to create a whole new record for them, you would do this under the Utilities menu, under Add a New Patient. If you click on that, it asks you what you want the clinic ID number to be. It doesn't automatically assign the number, it just asks you what it's going to be. By default, it's going to go to the smallest number that's not used. So you'll probably have to you might need to change the number to one that's currently available. So you'll have to know what the next available clinic ID number is in line that you can assign to that patient. I'm going to cancel that one for right now though. Another feature that you might use is under this Help tab. It has an option here for online help. If you click that, it's going to open basically a user manual for the program, and you can just look through that yourself and see what all the different options are for getting information about how to use different features. I think we've covered the basics here. I'll wrap this video up now, and in the next videos we'll go into more detail in how to use some of these features.